like it's like the microphone or the audio or something goes to sleep. I don't know.
Well, I took away my sainthood yesterday.
You what?
I took away my sainthood yesterday.
What did you do, Dee?
So I told you my ex who stabbed and killed me or tried to kill me in California.
Yeah.
Decided to text and kidnap my daughter. Keep this in mind. Him and his mom kidnapped my daughter. Messaged me and told me that, she had passed away. I was like, I'm sorry. Well, me being me, I tried reaching out yesterday. I was feeling a little bit better. Had some common sense about me. Tried reaching out to him to ask him how he was doing. I have a wonderful wife and a wonderful life. I don't need you reaching out to me. Excuse me? So I said a few things that I'm not ashamed of, but I am ashamed of because they should have been said 10 years ago versus now. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I didn't at least tell him, well, we all know your mother's burning in hell right now. I didn't go that far.
Mm-hmm.
At least I didn't go that far.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you ain't get snappy with me and give me an attitude, I ain't gonna deal with it. Not gonna deal with it. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why we got a divorce. There's a reason why I didn't come back when you were begging me to come back in 2023. To have stupid written across my forehead. I don't see it. So.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other thing is I downloaded on my laptop because everyone was doing it. It is a plug-in app type thing where, like, if I turn on my camera, it can change my looks for Snapchat. It's compatible with StreamYard. And I thought, well, maybe that's what the problem is. No, because I did that months ago. So I don't know.
I don't know. I don't have anything like that. So I don't know. Plus yours is an HP, mine's a Mac. I don't know. I stay away from all that stuff. I get creeped out by that kind of stuff anyway. So kind of hidden things are within all that programming and everything. So I stay away from it.
Well, see, my thing is, if for the longest time I didn't want my identity out there, where I finally cammed up, it took courage from a lot of people, Arctic being one of them, going, it's not going to hurt to turn on your camera.
Yeah, I don't like, hiding behind profiles and fake names and things like that. It's always harder to trust people when they do that.
Well, you guys get a real face of me.
I know. Uh-oh. Lost her.
Camera. Interesting.
What is going on there, Dee?
I don't know. See, if I had my ex around, not the ex that I was just talking about, but my son's biological dad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be going through this because he's like he took an iPhone that he ran over with a semi-truck and rebuilt it, and it worked.
Okay.
And that was the early days of iPhones, okay? So if he was around, he could tell me how to fix my problem. But not talking to people.
Something's going on with audio. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not that you and I are both having at the same time different computers and everything. I don't know.
I think it's, like I said, I blame StreamYard, but you're saying it's everything having issues.
For me, yes. For me, yes. In fact, when the think tank was it, I don't know if it was this past Sunday, but maybe the Sunday before, right in the middle, it was just audio goes out.
Oh, and then what was it? Monday night, you had a little bit of audio issues too?
That's right. During the live show, that's right. But it had anything to do with StreamYard. Because like I said, I had a problem with Zoom this morning, and It's like the computer registers, if I go into my settings for my computer and I like tap on the microphone, you'll see the bars going up, but you try to hook it up to Zoom or something and it wouldn't work. Don't know. It's weird.
Weird.
So what are we talking about tonight, Dee? Where do you want to go with this evening?
Well, you saw the list for the month.
I did. Well, many of them I know, enough to talk about them, and then there are a couple I don't know anything about. So you want to start wherever we can, you want to, and you and I can have a decent discussion. We'll throw some ideas back and forth.
Yeah, because I didn't have a chance this week to do trivia.
That's all right. Sure, show.
Well, we have the two kids missing out of Colombia or Canada. So I found this and I thought it was kind of interesting. The British Columbia, the feet washing up onto the shore.
Right. I'm familiar with that going back some years. That's been some years that's been going on, right?
Since 2007.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that. They would have DNA, or were the feet and everything so damaged that they couldn't get DNA off them? But I remember back at time, and of course I've not read the deep specifics lately, but at least at some point I read some explanations why that could have been. It had nothing to do with necessarily foul play or anything. Maybe some fishermen over the years who went missing and weren't found drowned, and the fish come along or things like that.
Well, I know that part of the creepy elements from it is the discovery has led widespread speculation and theories ranging from serial killers to trauma.
Right.
Investigators determined that some of the feet belong to individuals who are likely dead by suicide or accident, but not all have been identified.
Right. I once again, not knowing absolutely every circumstance in the timeline and everything else, that seems like a pretty reasonable position to me. I can understand why people start to speculate, and of course, if these are from Canada, then you can't go and name us and try to start narrowing all this stuff down. And they don't really have a database like we do in Canada for such things. So I can understand how that would cause the sensationalism and the theorizing and all that to occur. But a lot of people are going missing out there in the oceans of the world. The oceans are very dangerous. So people go. We have missing people out here out of Madeira Beach who've gone missing, deep sea fishing, not come back.
Well, see, and I know that they say sharks are very, very closely related to catfish or freshwater fish, catfish. And I know catfish will eat just about anything, kind of like a shark.
Yeah.
But catfish puke up sometimes their dinner.
Uh-huh.
I've had it happen to me in a boat, and I swore to God I'd never be in a boat again as long as I was fishing. Especially when the mouse came running across my foot because it was still alive.
I hope nobody ate before watching and listening to us.
I just did. We had fat burgers
some hours ago, so I'm good.
We had fat burgers, and fat burgers are delicious. If you haven't had one,
I have when I lived in Las Vegas. Yes, I'm not sure if they had fat burgers down here in the Tampa area, but yeah, in Las Vegas, yes.
Mind you, where we have our fat burger, the population, I think I told Chris, is like 686 people, and they have a fat burger. Granted, it was in a truck stop, but oh my God, we'll have to go back.
That helps. Yeah. I remember Fat Burger from my Vegas days. I was more of an In-N-Out guy. In-N-Out burger.
I didn't like their sauce.
What, In-N-Out?
Mm-hmm.
Or
the In-N-Out sauce?
I have fond memories of In-N-Out Burger in Las Vegas. People here in Florida will tell you Five Guys is better, but I'm telling you it's not.
Really? See, I've never had Five Guys, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah. But I go there once in a while. Maybe twice a year or something. It's like Five Guys is expensive, and you're gonna have to like double your cholesterol medication if you go there too for a little while.
Well, I think I probably should have, because not only did I have the fat burger, I had the order of onion rings, and oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm a Whataburger onion ring girl. I don't like most onion rings from anywhere else, but Whataburger. Yeah. These were good.
Unlike catfish, we're not going to throw it back up.
Oh, I don't know about that with me right now.
Well, you've been sick. I'm glad to see. I hear that you do sound okay. You know, I guess you get a little cough there and everything, but you told me that temperature you had, I don't know, it was yesterday or the day before. That's a little scary.
On Monday, like I said, I was terrified. Whenever we got me to the urgent care, when I walked in, they're like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "I don't know."
Everything.
Yeah, I'm throwing up. I can't keep anything in. Can't keep anything down.
Yeah. As that one comedian, he makes a joke about going to the emergency room and getting there, and they ask, you know, what seems to be wrong? And he goes, well, what seems to be wrong is everything on my inside wants to be on my outside.
Yeah. And of course, the doctor came in, she listened to me, and she goes,
the comedian,
I think you have pneumonia. And I looked at her, I was like, how did I get pneumonia? It explained that to me. And she goes, well, with your temp, with the way your chest is sounding, and you're saying you don't have any sinus pressure, she goes, that's a sign of pneumonia. And I was like, well, the boyfriend was sick last week with sinus crud, but he didn't even sound this bad, right? And she goes, yeah, she goes, I could order CAT or x-rays, but she goes, I'm just going to say it's pneumonia and put it down on your chart that you had pneumonia when you came in.
Well, like, okay. I don't know. What's better, pneumonia or old pneumonia?
Neither.
Neither, right.
My mother had it and put her in the hospital. I don't
want old pneumonia. I want pneumonia.
Speaking of my mom will be 86 tomorrow.
Wow.
And her phone's turned off, so therefore her daughter can't call her and tell her happy birthday.
Sounds like a father I know. I did talk to my dad today, though. Yeah.
Oh. I've tried to call her all week long. Finally, I got a hold of my little sister. She goes, yeah, our phones are off. She goes, I don't know when I'm going to get them back on. She goes, but I am going to set it up so that way you can call her. I was like, how is that? She goes, I'll set her up through the internet. I know how to do it all. I was like, okay.
Okay.
You think you're smarter than your sister? Go right on ahead. Your sister who deals with this stuff on an everyday basis, except for can't figure out why. For some reason, we want to have audio issues here as of late.
So which one you want to go to next? I don't know if we're going to be able to solve that one in Canada. It's not even in the United States, D.
Have you covered the Brandon Swanson case?
No, but I just talked about him Monday night for the live show, so it's fresh in my mind if you'd like to.
Mind you, I did this.
Obviously, somebody was not paying attention to the live show on Monday night, even though I know you were in there, D.
Yeah, well, I try to keep my head up high enough to actually listen.
Okay. All right.
Remember, I was sick. You can't hold it against me.
You were delirious. It was 102-degree temperature. I was delirious, Ed. I don't remember.
I mean, heck, yes. No, maybe it was Tuesday. I went to the ER, urgent care. It, this week has been a blur. With Monday night getting that message and the way it came across, and of course, then Death read it, and the way he took it, he was like, then why did he even message you? You know, if he didn't want to message you and tell you this, why did he even message you? Make sense of it. I was like, I can't. It's another way to torture me. That's all I can make sense of it. And I hate being that way.
I'm just gonna stay out of all of that.
Yes. But anyway, Brandon Swanson, the college student who got, I think we've even done this in trivia, haven't we?
Probably. It's probably probably. I mean, Brandon Swanson, a fairly well-known disappearance, so it's probably popped up many times. You've probably talked about it before. I've talked about it. We've talked about it. Yeah, probably.
We know he got his car stuck in the ditch. We know he made a phone call. He was in the middle of, was it rural Massachusetts? No.
Minnesota.
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 I have wrote down in the notebook different things. Always print it off. Now that we figured out how to print, my printing things are going to start working better.
Yeah.
Because we learned that I can send it from myself over to dockets, and then from dockets print it. So
yeah.
Anyway, car was found in the ditch. He was, while searching for him, his parents stayed on the phone with him. And this is something that also makes me it goes back also to the Molly and Colt case, because the parents were on the phone with him and they still couldn't find him.
Right. I agree.
The only thing that throws me off is the oh shit part.
Well, it's one of those things, I think, Dee, where I can certainly believe that he's, going, walking around in the dark and doesn't know where he's going and he's talking on his phone instead of using it as a flashlight. And if he stumbled off and fell into the Yellow River or whatever the river it is that right there, I can certainly believe that. I mean, I don't think I would be, an exactly shocking thing. Somebody's traipsing around in near water and ends up in the water, when it's completely dark out. I don't think that's surprising. The way I would assess it is two different things. First of all, that car should have never been where it was found. There was no reason for him to be on that road anyway. It was not on his way home. And secondly, it seems that he was on the phone with his father for like an hour and a half, but we have no idea what they talked about during that time. Nothing. An hour and a half is long. I mean, I talked to my dad for an hour, and that's a long time. We cover a lot of different things, and I can tell everybody what we discussed, trivia, whatever else. And what did those two talk about for an hour and a half? Was it imperative that Brandon be on the phone with his father that whole time? It seems, at least the way they've left it, unusual.
Oh, here's my other thing. What year was this that he went missing? I don't have that wrote down.
2008.
So phones weren't as good as they are nowadays. If the phone would have got wet, this is my thought, tell me if I'm wrong or not. If the phone would have got wet, it wouldn't have rained for 2 days prior or afterwards.
Dee, that's a great point. That is still, 9 years into my work. I'm still not sure. I'm sure I don't know exactly what the answer is. Many times, as we've talked about phone information and pings and everything else, we just have to remember that when you call a cell phone and you hear that ringing, that is not a real ring. It's not like in the olden days with the phones on the wall and
Hmm.
you hear a phone ringing. That was actually that phone ringing. That's not what we're hearing today. When you call somebody's phone, that is just some computer making that sound. That's all it is. So we just have to remember that.
This is true. But wouldn't it, because it says 2 days, including inclusion if it was destroyed from him going into the river, which is where the search dogs went to, was the river, which we both know how we feel about dogs.
Right.
They abruptly stopped.
Well, I mean, we have to realize it is at least conceivable, possible that he went into the river and the phone didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know how that would happen given that he's holding on to it and he says that, but I guess it's theoretically possible.
But see, then I go back, okay, so the phone was ringing after he said, oh shit, and then the call ended, but then it rang. I'm confused on that. You see what I'm going with? I'm confused.
I mean, if you're saying that if it went into the water that it should have just automatically gone to voicemail, then I say you're probably right, but I don't think there's an accepted description or a science on that particular topic.
Have you ever got a phone wet, Ed, back then? Just let me ask, have you ever got a phone wet back then?
What?
Have you ever got a phone wet back then? Accidentally dropped it in water, puddle?
I've never dropped a phone in water ever.
Oh. I guess I'm the only one that's ever done that.
No, I think a lot of people do that. I've just been very fortunate. I did have a phone during a disc golf tournament. I had it in my bag and it got wet and it needed to be replaced, but I've never actually dropped the phone in water.
Okay. See, with Nicholas, when he was a baby, his diaper bag was a backpack. I carried everything in the backpack, including my phone, including extra bottles of water. Well, somehow we had one get opened and destroyed the phone. And this was within hours. People were trying to call me. No rings, no nothing, because my mom called my ex's phone and was like, why isn't she answering? And he goes, oh, her phone got wet. She goes, well, it wasn't even ringing, so it makes sense. It wasn't working. It was destroyed.
I agree with you, but like I said, I don't think there's an accepted science. I think it may depend on the kind of service you have. It may depend on the provider. It could depend on the year that it happened. You know, there's a lot of different things because it's all computer. It's not mechanical. It's computer generated. It's no different than, you know, these audio issues that you and I are having that, you know, there's no accepted science right the way on how to fix this. It could be multiple reasons. So I just don't think it's as easy to say. You very well may be right. In fact, you know, it may be even 90% probable that you are right. The problem is that 10% is kind of large, I think, when we consider something like this. You know, to me, I'm not concerned about what happened after he went missing. I'm more concerned about what happened before he went missing and trying to explain those things. Because his parents are still alive, and you know he's on there for half an hour. What they were talking, you know, why didn't they call a tow truck? Why didn't he tell him to just stay with his car? Why didn't he? Why didn't they? It seems like of all the possible choices that could have been made that night, both Brandon and his father made like the worst ones. Walking in the dark without a flashlight, talking while you're walking, not calling, towing, you know, everything else. And then on top of that, Brandon didn't even know where he was. He explained, you know, he thought he was one place and he was in another. I mean, it's like, the worst of all things coming together. How is that possible?
The whole saying that, like I said, I go back to Molly and Colt, the whole case with them.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the reason why the phone stopped ringing with them was the fact that the phone died. It wasn't a damaged phone.
Mm-hmm.
So, with me, a lot of times I try to figure out, I look for cases that kind of coincide with each other, that look kind of similar. And that was one of the ones that I think the reason why I actually covered that one is because it did remind me of Molly and Colt.
It does. In fact, I might, although it's been 3 days ago now, I think I might even brought that up when I was talking about Brandon on Monday night, that these are both his disappearance and their disappearances do not seem like they could have happened the way they happened. It seems like all of the worst choices of all the worst choices that you can make. So both in Colt and Molly's and in Brandon's, we are missing a key part of that pre-disappearance puzzle, maybe for reasons that some people don't want to say.
Oh, we had New Crazies also come out in Summer's case, by the way. I wanted to tell you about that one too here in a little bit.
They're out there. The kooks are out there. They're coming out of Kookville.
Yeah.
Going beyond the limits of, going outside the city limits of Kookville and infiltrating our nice little society over here.
And then they come into YouTube and then they act, which I've been told this one has had a YouTube channel for years. And I'm like, but no. But we'll leave that for towards the end. Anyway.
Brandon Swanson, unfortunately, I will say this, if we're going to move on to something else. If he went into the water, being that we wouldn't even know where he went into the water, the chances of finding him are just above zero. It sucks. But that's where my idea is on this.
My question is why hasn't Adventures with Purpose tried to find him?
Where would you start?
The river.
Well, yeah, but that's a lot. Remember, is Adventures with Purpose, and really their specialty is not people in water. It's cars with people maybe in them in water. That's a totally, totally different animal, and I'm certainly willing to give them a break on that because it's way, 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 way more difficult. And if they never find any bodies in water in the history of their existence without vehicles being attached to them, I'm never going to hold that against them. Okay, certainly not. But you just don't know where he went into the river. If you look at that river, it winds all over the place. He could have gone into the river in a multitude of locations, and we don't even know where he was when he went in. I mean, where do you even start? I don't know.
You don't know where to start. Well, you kind of do, because we know where he went off the road at.
Yes, but we don't know into what direction he walked because he did not correctly describe where he was. He thought he was in one place, and it turned out his car was in a totally different place 20 miles away.
So, do you think he might have been drinking that night?
Well, the story from the people who were around him before he left said they didn't think he was that intoxicated. I'm inclined, what does it say? Impairment starts with the first drink. If he was drinking at all, then it's the possibility that he was. And, that's one of those things. Is that the reason that we have none of the content from that talk? Because is that the reason that they didn't call the tow truck? Because we know what happens when you call a tow truck and you say, hey, I'm stuck in a ditch. You know who shows up first? The cops.
True. Well, sometimes.
Well, a lot of times, especially out there in the middle of nowhere, maybe cop doesn't have anything better to do. And so he shows up, the cop shows up, Brandon's there, maybe stumbling around, and that very well maybe. I mean, really, who wrecks a car out in the middle of nowhere and doesn't call a tow truck? Who does that? Not smart. Maybe, but there are reasons people don't do that. There's a reason that 9,000 cars a day get abandoned in the United States.
Back when I was a teenager. Oh.
Would you say?
I said me back when I was a teenager.
Yeah,
I walked 5 miles.
Yeah, I've never been a drinker. I've never drank and drive because I've never been. You know, that was never my thing, drinking and everything. But I have done other things in cars, but I've never abandoned a car. That's crazy.
Well, it wasn't drunk. I was tired. I was leaving my best friend's house, and we don't know what happened. I don't know if something walked out in front of me, if I fell asleep. But I woke up and my car was totaled. I walked all the way home crying, and my mom, she goes, "You should have been here at midnight." And I was like, "Yeah, my car's stuck somewhere between here and there." Mm-hmm. So she calls my brother. My brother gets up and goes and finds my car. And then calls my mom and tells my mom it's totaled. What do you want me to do about it? So I've done it. Middle of the night. Mm-hmm. So I've been there.
Yeah, I would say if we were to maybe there are statistics out there. I don't know what they are. I've never seen a study like this. Maybe somebody, maybe AAA or the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration has done something like this. It is a fact that 9,000 vehicles in the United States get abandoned on public roadways every day. 9,000 every day. And so I'd like to know, has anybody actually ever broken it down? Why do those cars get abandoned? Where did they break down, run out of gas? Was it somebody went on a joyride, stole a car and drove it till it ran out of gas? Breakdowns, people abandoning their cars and going to commit suicide in the woods. We don't have any stats on that. If we did, it might help us better analyze these disappearances that actually involve vehicles, including Brandon's. But I don't know if anybody's ever done a study like that.
Yeah. It makes me ask questions, and I was like, I should have got more on that case, but I didn't. I just figured it helped us kind of have a guideline.
What are you moving on to now, D? We've beaten that. You know, we've beaten that one as much as we can tonight.
How about the kitty cabin murders?
Right. Yeah. Talk about that one. Read what you got about that one. That's not one as I know as well, but I did read about it. Yeah.
In 1980, a shocking quadruple murder took place in a remote cabin in Kitty, California. The body of Sue Sharp, her son John or Johnny, and his friend Dana. Mm-hmm. Give me 1 second. I've got to plug in the internet. Plug in the internet. Plug in the laptop. Dana Wingate, Wingate, Gate.
Yep.
Were found inside, bound and killed in a gruesome scene. Sue's daughter, Tina, was abducted and remains were found 3 years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of different possibilities here. As you know, I'm not a murder guy. I'm not saying I haven't taken an interest like in the Zodiac Killer and some others, but I collect stats on disappearances, not murders, or unsolved murders. That's not something that I do. Although I understand that many of the disappearances that I've featured are murders. You could go into, was this something random? Was there just some crazy person out in the woods happen upon these people? Certainly possible. But, anytime you have women who are murdered, you have to start looking at the men around them who knew that they were going to be out there in the middle of nowhere. You know, you could go a variety of directions with that.
The creepy element to this case was a particular chilling is a photograph of the crime scene that was collected, which showed a brutal of the brutality of the killings. The images was later removed from public view.
Right, I read about that. Don't think I ever saw that picture. I don't know when it was available. I mean, I guess it was available within the internet era, being that this happened like 15 years before the internet. You know,
well, 1981.
Yeah, so 14 years.
So it makes you wonder where they were.
You know, who took that? You know, was it some investigator that took that picture and leaked it? As sometimes that happens these days. You know, famous people getting arrested and then somebody gets in trouble, like what happened with those plane crashes last year in Washington, D.C., and people stole the video from the airport cameras and were paid to leak, and they all got in trouble and got fired. Is it a situation like that? Or was it actually taken by the killer? Do we know? I don't think we know.
I'm going to try one more time.
Uh-oh.
That's weird. I have access now to my mic, but I don't have now access to my...
I can hear you. You went away there for you lost
it. I went to go hit my camera, and now I don't have access to my camera.
No.
Which could be why I'm having issues connecting to other people's. You know what I mean? Stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, D. I being that that's an HP, I've had many HPs. And I've had problems with them, but it was never having anything to do with cameras and microphones and everything. Usually the issues were keyboards, mouses, and, hard drive crashes.
Well, I just sent you a photo of the murder scene on Facebook.
Oh, you have it. Where'd you send that? Through Messenger?
Yep. I guess I could have done it this way. We'll see if it would work this way.
Okay. So you have those numbers and things. Yeah, well, that was certainly somebody who was doing an investigation. I don't know if that was necessarily leaked or not. It doesn't show any bodies or anything. It just has a chocolate line, I guess you'd call it. I wouldn't say that picture is that salacious.
Well, and the reason there's others too. That was just the first one I came across was that one. Give me a second. Let me bring it up.
I see this other one that's kind of there's a couch in the picture, but once again, not anything that I would say is salacious.
Yeah, looks too horrid. But back then, it could be a different story. We know how people are.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I have to say that the longer crimes go, and the more we research, and the more we look into them, the less creepier we see stuff, In the 80s, that could have been bothering.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, D, because I do recognize it in at least with what I do with disappearances. I don't cover murders, of course, like we're talking about here, but I do realize that one of my goals is to try to take the mystery out of disappearances, and that doesn't necessarily mean. So I want to solve all of them, but I realize probably even if I live another 30 years, some of these are still going to be unsolved. But I mean by the mystery is the analysis of them. These things don't have to be, the investigations themselves don't have to be mysteries. And in some people, I guess some people might say, well, Ed, you're just taking the fun out of it. And it's not and I would remind everybody, it's not supposed to be fun. This isn't fun. So when I look at this picture, I'm trying to think about it in a very rational way, and I think for some people that's just like, why can't we believe this or why can't we believe that? Well, that's really not what I do.
Yeah. I know.
I try to keep it as boring as possible.
Yes, Ed, we know.
So certainly 4 people get murdered, and people start thinking of like Friday the 13th slasher movies and all these things. People's imaginations run wild. Probably not.
Well, Doodle, how are you, sweetie?
Doodlebug.
I'm gonna do this, and we're gonna see if I can entice her. Because see, she's my favorite person in the world.
Wow.
This.
Wow, I'm not your favorite person, D. Wow.
Okay, so there's an order for females versus males. She's the favorite female.
All right. Well, you talked your way out of that one, D.
How about, you said you know a lot about the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah, we could talk about him. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do that, considering we have a friend of ours to our shows, both of our shows, who has been in contact with a grandchild who claims his grandpa was the Zodiac Killer.
A lot of, it's funny you bring that up because, I have watched Zodiac, the movie Zodiac, which does have a lot of inaccuracies in it, has been on the streaming service Tubi, Tubi, and I've watched it many times over the last couple months. And so it's been on my mind. And it is amazing to me, being that you bring that up, it is amazing how many descendants of people have come forward saying, I think my father was the killer. I think my uncle was the killer. I think my grandfather was the killer. It really, I think that is a unique aspect to the Zodiac phenomenon.
Yeah. Well, he said that this person, which I'm not going to put out any names, but this person told me that, he's in contact with him, and he has a lot of evidence that literally points to the direction of this person.
Okay. Without actually being able to see the evidence myself, I don't know really what to say. I will tell you that in reading some of these descendants, I guess, accounts and beliefs of why they believe these things, my opinion, they all seem pretty thin to me.
Yeah.
It's more, it's like they're almost hoping that their uncle or their father was the Zodiac Killer. I mean, why would you do that? Why would you hope that your father or some family member was a murderer? You're pushing it, and making it public.
Maybe it's because you have deviant thoughts of your own and you're trying to explain them.
Good. That's insightful, D. Right. It's insightful. For example, if I ever thought that my father, who's still alive, killed somebody, I'm not going to go to the internet and tell everybody. I'm going to collect the evidence and then go to the jurisdiction where he might have committed murders and say, you know what? I'm just going to give this stuff to you. I don't know what to make of it. You want to talk to my dad, I suppose I can arrange that and everything. I'm not going to go blast it and write a book on it and everything. It's crazy. If you really want justice, I think that's the way you do it. If you want attention and are looking to get on some podcasts and everything, then you go about it the way these people have done it.
To me, the Zodiac Killer has always just kind of, I don't know if it amazed me because of, really it didn't. What amazes me is it happened in the 60s and they never caught him. That's what amazes me. Mm-hmm. Considering, I think of, okay, when you think of serial killers, first one that comes to my mind that actually does grab my attention is Jack the Ripper.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Sure.
But that also happened before the 19th century too.
It was 1800s in London, yeah.
Yeah.
19th century, yeah. Yeah, well, I've listened. I didn't read it. I listened to the audiobook, the Robert Graysmith, the most best-selling book, Zodiac. I've listened to it, read quite a bit about it. And should they have caught him with late 60s into 1970s technology? Probably not. I think in many ways the killer got lucky. But knowing what I know about it, were there mistakes made? Yes, but I wouldn't necessarily say by the investigators. There were witnesses and other people who made mistakes. I wouldn't say the investigators made any. But
You know, you would think with
I
him
think
being a
that one's-
serial killer, he'd have more than 5 people underneath his belt.
Excuse me?
I said you'd think with him being a serial killer, there'd be more than just 5 people.
Well, you know enough about it as well, D, that he, of course, he claimed he killed 12, 20. I mean, he made up all sorts of numbers for what he did, but there have only actually ever been 5. You know, the people that we know, is it 4? Let me think about, 5 noted killings, and of course, a couple guys who were stabbed and shot and didn't die, that really are attributable to him. Everything else that he claims has not been proven to be connected to him.
I keep getting like sprinkled on, but we don't have any clouds.
It's weird. It's weird how that happened. That happens here in Florida too. In fact, that was just happening a couple nights ago when I was standing on the balcony on the other side of the building. What is this? Where is this coming from? Looking up there's nothing.
Yeah, I'm like, my hands get, I keep getting these wet spots. Where are they coming from? My soda's sitting over here. There's no way for it to, splash off. What's going on here?
But I could go, the Zodiac Killer, I could go on about that one. In fact, I've maybe, 3 different times on a live show, I've gone through that, some of my own insights, some of them being unique. But if anybody wants to, listen to a podcast that really did good coverage of it, that was The Consult. I think that was earlier this year, where Julia and her co-hosts had the guy who runs a site that is considered to be the definitive Zodiac site, takes all of the sensationalism and everything out of it. If you want to really, really get a good insight into all of it. But no. Don't know. I would also say, if you've seen the movie, and it's a fantastic movie, it's one of the best movies of the 21st century.
The Zodiac Killer.
Zodiac with Robert Downey Jr. and Jake Gyllenhaal and Mark Ruffalo. Fantastic. And it's weird, you watch it and you're like, there's Iron Man, there's Mysterio, or whatever his name is. There's the Incredible Hulk. That was all before they were ever involved in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
It's really weird. But anybody who watches it, just keep in mind there are several inaccuracies in the movie. So just remember.
Several and this is true. Like I said, that's the one that I've never really. Whenever reading about it, it never really grabbed me. Mm-hmm. Unlike the X-Men of New Orleans, or even like I said, you've got Jack the Ripper. I was looking for something. Since we're on a serial killer discussion right this second. I've got.
Well, to me, you always see my perception, at least what comes the train. Here comes the train.
There's everyone's favorite thing in the world.
But I forget what was I going to say now. Now I forget what I was going to say. That dang train got in the way of my great thought. and it has escaped me for now. But oh no, I know. Remember what I was going to say, D. My perception is that you really don't go in that direction. You're more into like child disappearances.
Yeah,
In disappearances and crimes and things like that than serial killers. My perception.
You heard it again. Obviously, I'm only meant for children's cases.
Sebastian Summers, yeah.
Well, Summers grabbed me. I can't explain why Summers' case grabbed a hold of me like it did. But it did. Sebastian's, I think, brought more intrigue to me because of the location, how far away it was from Summer. If Summer would have went missing at night, I would have swear to God there's someone out there kidnapping children, getting them to come out their homes, So have you heard of the Texarkana Moonlight Murders?
I read about it. Like I said, that sheet you sent me, I read the whole thing. So I'm sure as soon as you read it, I'll be like, oh yeah.
And an identified serial killer and this happened in 1946, an unidentified serial killer known as the Phantom Killer murdered 5 people and wounded 3 others in and around the Texarkana, Texas area. Over a span of 10 weeks, the attacks all occurred on weekends and involved young couples in secret areas. The killer was never caught, and the case was basis for the 1976 film The Town That
The Town That what, D? Hello?
I will spell it DREADED.
The Town That, spell it again?
DREADED.
The Town That Dreaded
Sundown.
The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Man, that's a fantastic name for a movie.
And it was wrote after the
Sundown.
It was wrote after the Texarkana killer.
Well, it sounds a little bit like Zodiac. I mean, Zodiac went and killed one couple and then went after another couple, successfully killed the girl. The guy survived. And then he went out to that Lake Berryessa and stabbed to death a young woman. But once again, the guy survived. Kind of the same thing. Killing of couples. My perception these days, a lot rarer. Back then, it seems like it was more common.
Yeah, it does.
Perception. I don't know what the stats say. So you might look at if you were to do a kind of profiling, amateur profiling on this. Did this person or people do this because they were frustrated? Frustrated in the relationships, frustrated sexually. You'd want to know any connections between these people who were murdered. Did they know each other? Did they maybe go to the same school, go to the same church, or the same bowling alley? These are all things that you'd have to look at. Now, I'm not saying that's rocket science right there. My guess is police back then maybe did look at those things. Obviously, it's still unsolved. So, of course, forensics, the most basic of forensics back then. So that would allow somebody to get away with that.
Oh yeah, considering that was 1940s. And then if you want to go back, we also have the Axeman in New Orleans, which was an unidentified serial killer who was active in New Orleans, Louisiana, between May 1918 and October 1919. So, I mean, these are all kind of similar, MOs.
Well, it's something that just popped in my head, and it might just be circumstantial or, just really, really going out on a limb. But what first strikes me both about the axe murders and the fan, the guy from, or men, or whoever, the killer from Texarkana, is that time of 1918 into 1919, and then that time in 1946. Is that a coincidence that those are just right after World Wars?
Well, then you got the Zodiac killer who was in 1960s.
Yeah, during Vietnam. Is that a coincidence, or is there something to that? I say that because of what happened recently. We heard about this Mormon church, people getting killed. Who was it? Some military vet. I'm not here to put down the military. I'm just stating facts. But we had a military vet who did that. And then we had the shooting down in Southport, North Carolina with the guy in the boat. Once again, military vet. And we know, we now know these days a lot more about PTSD. And of course, they used to call it shell shock or battle fatigue. And could this be what we're talking about, going back to the axe murderer in New Orleans and this person in Texarkana? Maybe there's something to that.
Well, and what war did we have close to 1992, though?
Gulf War?
Because there was a serial killer, the I-70 serial killer.
Gulf War, first Gulf War, 1990, 91.
This one, though, I don't think he got as hands-on as some of the ones we were just talking about, considering he used a 22 caliber pistol. So, yeah. And the Axeman, the only request he had was for them to play jazz music. If they played jazz music, he wouldn't harm the family or the household.
Man, I want to harm anybody who likes jazz music.
You like jazz?
No, I said I want to harm anybody who likes jazz music.
Oh, the way I took that, I was like, you like jazz.
The exact opposite. When I played the piano way 30-some years ago, I much more enjoyed playing classical, Liszt, Mozart, Beethoven, than I did enjoy playing Dave Brubeck and all that stuff. That's just me. Jazz, just even to this day, I wouldn't say I dislike it as much as I hate country music, but I can only take jazz for a little bit, and then I'm like, I'm done.
Oh, I like most.
You like jazz music. I'm going to let you go. Okay.
I like most of all music. You know this.
You what?
I stand more of the countryside, but then again, that I think comes from my upbringing.
Yeah.
And of course, me being a barrel racer and stuff all the way through high school and stuff. So that's where the country comes from.
Do you usually beat those barrels? How fast do they run?
Never clocked my horse.
I know what barrel racing is. I'm not that much of a city boy, D.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. Yes. Barrel racing. Yes.
Yes. This little turd right over here. But now that we've talked about some serial killers and we've talked a few missing, I have another missing case that I just noticed, and I am pretty sure you probably covered it at some point in your life. The disappearance of Dorothy Jane Scott.
Man, it's familiar. A familiar name. If it was on your sheet, I surely read it, but that I'm guessing that I've run into this disappearance before, but it's once you start reading about it, I'll be like, oh yeah.
A young mother in California began receiving strange phone calls from an unknown man who claimed to be watching her.
Right.
The calls what increased after, or CEASED.
Ceased.
That's what I thought it said, but I was like, but then again, my vision, nothing's working right, Ed, including my voice.
Okay.
After she vanished under unusual circumstances, her car was later found on fire in an alleyway, and her remains were found. How is she a disappearance if her remains were found?
Okay.
4 years later.
4 years later, they were found.
Mm-hmm.
Does it say where?
No, but it does say the killer was never identified.
I don't know. This. I remember reading about this now. I've known it. It's all coming back to me now, and also it's probably coming back to me because I'm working on a disappearance way on deep background with a woman who went missing, and she had been receiving harassing phone calls too. And that's a disappearance that is still a disappearance. She's not been found, and it's always tough analyzing these kinds of cases. And of course, we don't have too many men who get harassing phone calls. It's usually women. That you need to hear more about, was this woman or whoever the person is, were there other people actually there when these calls came to Dorothy? Or was she just claiming that she was getting harassing phone calls?
Oh, she was a young mother, so I mean, let me look. See if I can pull up on Google. Okay. Dorothy Scott was not. Now, did I not just read she was found 4 years later?
You did.
Was not found dead in 1980, but she disappeared in May of that year from California after leaving a hospital where she was taken a co-worker for medical treatment. Her remains were discovered 4 years later in 1984, but the killer was never identified.
Well, once again, harassing phone call. I'm not saying you have to have the information tonight. I mean, this is, we're just two people talking here tonight. But I'd want to hear more about these phone calls. When did they come? Where did they come? Who else heard them? Did anybody else ever answer the phone? And it was the caller. These are all things that really need to be known to understand this. We should never take this kind of stuff for granted, because people make things up.
Well, it says the stalker in the months before the disappearance, Scott had been receiving threatening phone calls from an anonymous man who claimed he was watching her. In one call, he told her he was going to get her alone and cut her up so no one would ever find her. But with being a young mother, was she married?
Well, could it, the thing is, if it was like one of her exes, then this would not have been an anonymous caller, and she should have been saying, well, John Smith, you know, I broke up with him a year ago, and he just keeps calling me. But I guess she didn't say anything like that.
Yeah.
She would surely notice, you know, recognize the guy's voice. I mean, you really have to.
Oh, but her mother also received phone calls from a man who claimed to have Scott or to have killed her. None of the calls could be traced. However, because the calls would not, or the caller would not say, that would not stay on the line long enough, in August 1984, partial remains were found and later identified.
Like I said, it's just.
So they did try to trace the ones the mom was getting.
The problem we just have too many examples. And when I mean too many, I don't mean 1,000. I mean, maybe, you know, if we really started looking, 100, where people just made stuff up. Oh yeah, they said they were getting calls, but they really weren't. It's the whole Sherry Papini thing all over. I got kidnapped by 2 Hispanic women. No, you didn't. You know, there's a lot of people who make this stuff up for all sorts of reasons, both rational and irrational. So that's why, like I said, when I start hearing about things like this, you know, she's getting harassing phone calls and she's not taking extra steps to make sure she can't be kidnapped or can't be murdered. I mean, what was her you know, where was she supposed to be going? Where was she? Where do they believe that this alleged killer abducted her? I know I'm not expecting, these are like rhetorical questions right now.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I think a lot of people hear this and goes, oh yeah, she was absolutely some stalker killed her. And I'm telling everybody, you can't jump to that quickly, because a lot of this stuff is often made up by people who have mental health issues.
Yes. But I can tell you something that, you know, to this day still bothers me. Not only has my older sister had one stalker in her life, she's had at least 2.
I believe it.
One was a cop.
I believe it. I'm not saying stalkers don't exist. They certainly do to this day. I'm not saying that women mainly don't get harassing phone calls. Heck, you know, I mean, you know, I've even gotten, well, no harassing necessarily phone calls, but in my days, I've gotten enough calls and hang-ups, you know, from people. So these things happen, but that still does not mean you ever take this stuff for granted and just take for granted that it's true. You know, I think if you're directly going to just taking for granted it's true, you are missing you're skipping a very crucial part of the investigation process. And if that means you have to call, you know, somebody who disappeared a liar, then that's what you have to do. We're more concerned about the truth. We're not concerned about protecting people's reputations. That's not a concern to me.
Yeah, it's more a concern of safety versus not safety. There's so much with it. It's like the last one she had. She called the cops. The person was leaving notes on her car. She worked at Walmart. And when she'd get off work, she'd walk out to her car and there would be a new note.
Yeah.
Each and every single day.
This is, you know, Dee, I was just on Heather Grotman's podcast, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, and we talked about Cindy James in Canada. Same thing. She claims somebody was stalking her and doing this and doing that and everything, and nobody ever saw anything. Now, she had a couple like exes who were no bundles of joy, but she ended up being found in somebody's backyard all tied up, and they determined that she had died maybe from a drug overdose or something. And the police decided she did this all on her own. She made it all up. There was a fire in a house that she was staying in. She probably said it. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I hate to be like that, but once again, what's more important? Actually figuring out what happened in these situations, these crimes, if there were crimes committed, or protecting these people's reputations. I think if you just take for granted and believe all of them, you're going to leave a lot of unsolved cases out there.
And the sad thing is I think there is a lot of unsolved cases out there, Ed, that we don't know about.
Yeah.
When I went down the Whitaker rabbit hole, I didn't expect the Whitaker rabbit hole to lead me to a lot of rape, and other things that happen inside that family. Seriously, it wasn't something that I was when I jumped into it because I needed something to take me off my friend's passing. Which, did I tell you I lost a mod to death here recently?
Yep.
I didn't know if I had told you or not. But it was something to take me away from concentrating on, oh my God, what am I going to do now? One of my closest YouTube buddies besides Ed and Doodle are no longer here. Matter of fact, she used to pull me on panels with her because she knew I would talk. I wasn't one of those that would be quiet. I say what's on my mind, and sometimes it's not right. But guess what? I said it. I stand on it. And that was something she really did love about me. And so when I started digging and looking for something to watch, it was what popped up. And you said something about, on top of it, now we have a money laundering scheme going on inside the family as well. Drug addiction. Like a whole lot of stuff in this family. It makes you just stop for a minute and think, oh my, how many other families are out there? Especially in the area it took place, which is Odd, West Virginia, which is the Appalachians. How many other cases of this type of thing do we have that we don't know about?
Yeah.
That no one has brought to light. But we can always go to an easier case that me and you both love discussing. And that is Brian Schaefer. Go for it.
Oh boy. I take great pride in knowing that I am very good friends with at least the public authority. Of course, Kelly Kokenauer.
Yeah.
Formerly Kelly Bruce, who was on Unfounded 5 years ago, but I was invited to her wedding, and so I met her in person, and I've spoken to her just recently about a few things. That disappearance is always going to be defined by one thing, and that's the video of allegedly him not being shown leaving the Ugly Tuna. And is that creepy? I guess some people think it is. I mean, going on with this October theme that you have, I guess it is creepy. How do you go in someplace and not come out? But what do you think, Dee?
There's the other part. Just a second. I'm looking. Mr. Cole must have just went and got clothes, so he brought him out and said, "Boom." Perfectly perfect. For what?
That's sleepwear. And then that one shirt I got is to wear to school.
So I guess this is sleepwear. It says 3 pieces. Where's
this
the
is
third?
also this.
Oh, shorts. Okay. Here's your shirt.
What it says?
What does it say? I got your back.
And it's little William Bro's back while he's just laying there destroyed.
Oh, always fun with that one around. I didn't realize he was. I didn't realize they had went somewhere. Wow. But
Brian Schaefer.
Yeah, Brian Schaefer, the medical student who went missing. I keep wanting to get Diego over here Doodle, don't throw something at me. It might hurt because I'm coming from Missouri. Because Diego is from Ohio.
Uh-huh.
And he might have a little bit more insight than what I have, which you have your friend who has, went through this case.
Yeah.
But he also was a fireman. And when I told him my nutcase idea, that we know he had been out drinking all night long. And we know that beer bottles weigh a lot. What if he fell into a trash can, someone threw trash on top of him, not realizing they were throwing trash on top of him and just thought it was a bunch of beer bottles?
Could have happened. There are no facts to dispute that. My impression of it, if you just want to break it down into simply people who think that he was murdered in contrast to people who think that he wasn't murdered, let's just say everything else is, he ran off and started a new life or committed suicide or was an accident, everything. I still think that most people think that he was murdered. So if you think that it was an accident, I'm on that side with you. I don't know if I necessarily would buy into a garbage thing, but it's certainly possible. But, you and I would be, I think, in the minority.
I don't think murder. If anything, if that wasn't, something that happened, if it wasn't an accident, then yeah, he ran away and he changed his whole identity. That
could have happened.
We know that there was supposedly a spotting in Mexico, right?
Lots of spottings of him, and maybe it's because the way I would look at Brian Schaefer is I would not say that he has any distinguishing characteristics. You know what I mean? He wasn't unusually short. He wasn't unusually tall. He didn't have an unusual skin color. He had, dark hair. 5'11", 6 foot. I always thought, that he looked a lot like those two twins that do Home Improvement, that Home Improvement show. They're twins. I always thought he looked like them. So I think what I'm saying here is, given that, he probably blend in if he wanted to move somewhere and just be like, not change his appearance that much.
And I mean, like going through the death of his mother and the way, her dying from cancer, I can see that. Just wanting a new start all over.
Mm-hmm. And being that he was on the verge of going on that vacation with that, I don't even technically know if she was even his girlfriend. Maybe that's a little bit too much pressure for him. Going
Pastor Mary.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm not saying that there's a high percentage chance of that, but there's nothing that rules that out. I continue to think that, as you've heard me say before with Brian Schaefer, that it's one of those disappearances where the main thing known about it might not even have anything to do with the disappearance, and that's being allegedly he's not seen on that video. Was that planned by him? Did he somehow make that happen in order to cause his disappearance? Or is it just a coincidence that has popped up, with his disappearance? I really can't tell.
Out with the trash and you're still alive. You see, I hate the side of my brain where I'm going, well, if I really wanted to disappear.
Well, that's the creative side talking, and it can be helpful. The creative side can be helpful, but I think it always has to be tempered by, comparing it to many other disappearances. And I think what we know about most other disappearances of men going out to some drinking establishment and then going missing is that, most of those end up being solved, and they are the guys found deceased, and it's no foul play. It may be an accident, it may be misadventure or something, whatever. But most of the time, that is the resolution. It's usually not murder or some accident necessarily like you're talking about. It might be an accident, but it's an accident because the guy went into, decided to go down to the river and thought he could swim. Which still might be an option for Brian's disappearance.
Well, but then again, we would at least had something from the surveillance videos, wouldn't we?
Don't know. We know that video fails. He got out of there somewhere. Did they not get to the videos in time? Once again, is he just missed? Did they look at the right time frame and everything else? We know that. Hey, D, we know the police. Yeah. I know that one police officer said in that one documentary, "Oh yeah, somebody took the video home and watched." That did not happen. There's no way that some cop took evidence that could be part of a crime home, put it on his home VCR, and did that in his spare time.
Doodle, I wish you were still here.
That did not happen. I'm not saying somebody didn't look at the video. Obviously, somebody did because the video exists. But we only ever get a small snippet of it. To think somebody went through hours and hours of video and everything is crazy. That would be the first time I've ever heard anybody doing that in the disappearance of just your average person ever. So I still think the video part of this is still an open question, but now that it's been how many years, it's done. It's no,
2006, about 19 years.
Yeah, 2006 coming up April. What is it? April. It's coincidentally April Fool's Day when it happened. So a lot of people have made something of that as well. I don't know. People, I mean, as you know, D, you've followed it for all. People are thinking, oh, he's stuck inside of some wall. He's stuck inside some ceiling. Now, I did feature a disappearance on an Unfound Now where a young man got stuck behind a freezer and was there for quite a while, but it was in an abandoned building. So I think
I was thinking like garbage chutes, but but with a bar, you're not going to have garbage chutes. Are you?
I don't know. I mean, I have a garbage chute in my building, but it's 20 floors. Even if he got stuck in a garbage chute, I mean, when the garbage all start getting backed up or something, and I mean, if you took a dive down one, could have. Once again, these are things, and to be honest, there's a disappearance that I've featured, where I think it's a possibility that a woman did go down a garbage chute, and that was Elaine Johnson, coincidentally also from Ohio. You might remember that one, D. She lived in an apartment building, and she was like washing clothes, and her clothes were still in the washer and dryer, and she was gone. But the garbage chute or the laundry chute or whatever was right there. And she was an alcoholic. So.
Probably looking inside and went, ooh, what's that shiny thing? Would you go reach and went, whoop. Sorry. It slid on in.
Yeah, and if you do enough Google searches, you'll find that this is a thing. I mean, college campuses, apartment buildings, people high, people drunk, people doing things on dares, people getting killed riding the tops of elevators, getting onto the roof of an elevator and getting crushed. But those are usually buildings that are several stories, not like this that was like 2 stories.
Well, see, I remember, and this is going to get back also with Sebastian's case. I remember, and I know Brian's not that young, but in either late 2019, early 2000, and it might have been late 2000. Mm-hmm. It was around Christmas time, I tell you that, but I know it was either 19 or 20. There was a young boy who tried to go down a fireplace.
Right.
chimney,
Right.
and
Right.
he got stuck.
Yeah.
That case always comes to my mind, and the reason why is with Sebastian's case. And I'm like, have they checked, those houses they were building? Stuff like that. And I've even asked the PI, SF investigates about it. And he's like, I never thought about that. I was like, see, this is why I can never do your job. My brain works way, way too far out there.
I can't say too much, but there is a person a listener that I communicate with maybe once a week or something, but a woman went missing in his neighborhood and he's taken an interest in it. And the disappearance isn't that old. And he's just asked me, well, I'd like to, maybe help out. What you think can be done? I'm familiar with these streets and everything else. And I told him, I think the first thing you need to do is determine, how many abandoned buildings or homes, or not necessarily abandoned, but how many homes that are empty, they're for sale. You need to take a look at that, because this has the feeling that this could be like a Daniel Villarreal disappearance where, somebody goes into a pool house and never comes out.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So that's one of the suggestions I gave to him. Just cruise around and see how many abandoned buildings and houses there are, because she could have ended up in one of them for whatever reason. Because once again, the big thing the problem we have is when you start working on something like that is you're being controlled so much by your rational side, your logical side. Well, she wouldn't have done this. She wouldn't have done that. She wouldn't have done this. She wouldn't have gone off this direction. Well, there's just too many examples of people doing irrational things. You can't do that.
Things that you go, they wouldn't have done this. Well, you never know.
Yeah, you start rolling things out, and then that's the thing that eventually is the resolution. So that's what I've told him. Now, of course, I don't want him going on private property or everything. Please don't do anything illegal, immoral, or unethical. But that would be something that's on my mind. Regarding this particular woman's disappearance. Like I said, I don't want to get into the name and everything at this point, but it's recent. But that's about all I have for you tonight, Dee. Hour and a half.
Yeah.
Some good choices. We'll continue this throughout October if that's what you want to do.
Well, I had planned on making trivia out of some of them as well, which we've already done. Amy Bradley. I think Mara Murray's overdone.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, there's several that are overdone.
I hope that one, the Russian one, where the skiers or hikers all died. I hope we talk about that one sometime soon.
Well, and you got the Sutter children.
The Sutter children too. Sure, I'm knowledgeable on that too. Yes.
Where they went missing the parents were in a house fire.
Yep. But I'm out of here, Dee. Good talking to you tonight. I hope it does sound like you're feeling better, but not 100%. I hope you feel 100% tomorrow.
Well, I just hope my voice comes back soon and I don't sound so horrible.
Well, the man in your life probably doesn't hope that your voice comes back.
No, he actually encourages me going on panels so that way I lose it.
That's a damn funny joke right there, Dee. You're supposed to laugh.
Well, he said he encourages me to go on panels so I'll lose it.
Okay, Dee.
Hey, did you actually announce this Monday that there was someone actually found?
Trevor Nichols came back to his family. Yes, Trevor Nichols, who went missing from New York and went AWOL from the military. He is now back with his family. He did have to do a little time because of what he did, but he is now back with his family. In fact, his mother posted some new pictures of him hanging out with his family today.
That is great. I love hearing happy stories.
Amazing. Crazy, amazing. Yes.
I love happy endings.
Yeah. We don't get many of them.
No, we don't. Oh, and I was going to tell you about the crazy on the YouTube streets. We have a new one that came out of the woodworks on the Summer Wells' case and said that Grandis gave Summer to the CPS caseworker that was related to them, and she's living in Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
And we wonder why I keep my true crime the way I keep it.
all right.
Good
I'm out.
night.
All right. Good night.
Bye. Bye, y'all. Catch you next time.